All cardinals from the Catholic Church who are in Rome are meeting at the Vatican, where they're expected to decide on a date for Pope Francis' funeral. His body's been placed in a coffin inside a chapel within the Vatican before it's moved to St. Peter's Basilica later this week, where he's going to be lying in state. The 88-year-old pontiff died from a stroke and heart failure on Monday. Mourners have started to gather at St. Peter's Square in Vatican City on Tuesday morning. Thousands are expected to make their way to the square over the coming days to pay their respects to the late Pope. And Catholics around the world have been mourning Pope Francis' death. In South America, Africa and Asia, large gatherings and special masses have been held for the faithful to pay their respects. We're going to go live to Jonah, who's in Vatican City. The Pope had been unwell for some time, Jonah, and nevertheless, his death came as a shock to many around the world. What is the mood at the Vatican City at the moment?
The inevitable shock of death, as you say, now I think really beginning to sink in. In St. Peter's Square, people have been filing into the square all morning, as they will continue to do throughout the days ahead in ever greater numbers, as they did, of course, as well on Easter Monday. The faithful, members of the public, Catholics, non-Catholics, he had such broad appeal, Pope Francis as well, people coming here, of course, to pray, to reflect, to remember the legacy of the 12-year papacy of the first Argentinian Pope, the first non-European Pope in well over a millennium. And I've been speaking to some of them. I met one woman who talked about Pope Francis's embrace of the poor, his embrace of the climate and the environment, much as St. Francis of Assisi espoused, from whom, of course, Pope Francis took his name. Another woman said he did much to try and modernize and reform the institutions and the doctrine of the Church. He could have done more, she said, but this ancient institution is not easily turned. And another woman pointed to his successor in the hope that whoever comes next would have time to continue Pope Francis's legacy. And with those questions of legacy and consequence already beginning to surface here, I think, as I say, the reality of his death is sinking in for many beyond that shock announcement at 7 in the early hours, rather, of Easter Monday morning. However expected it may have been, he'd been ill for a very long time. The announcement that Pope Francis had died, first of a stroke, followed by a coma, and finally succumbing to heart failure. And as I say, they will continue to arrive here to pray, to mourn, and to remember for the days to come.
The Pope's death may have come as a surprise. Nevertheless, we know that there is a very strict procedure in place for what's going to happen over the next few days and indeed a couple of weeks or so. Just talk us through what we can expect.
Well, there's a sort of phase process underway now. We're well into the first period of days leading up to the funeral of the Pope. As we speak, cardinals are meeting inside St. Peter's, the first of a number of generalized meetings that will go over the process to come. But in this meeting, we're told they will decide on the date of the funeral. It has to happen between 4 and 6 days of death, so possibly the end of this week or just into the weekend. In the interim, Pope Francis's body will be brought here to St. Peter's Basilica, possibly on Wednesday, so that members of the public can pay their final respects. We know, of course, that he won't be buried there, as many of his predecessors were. He's elected instead to be buried in a church elsewhere in Rome, Santa Maria Maggiore, that was very close to his heart, in a tomb in the earth, he said, unadorned but for the word Franciscus, his name, of course, in Latin. And after that, a period of further days of mourning leading up to that huge, historic, secretive, ritualized process that the Vatican puts on inside the Sistine Chapel. 138 elector cardinals who will get together to vote and decide on a new pope.
I'm just looking at our lines. You're talking to us, Jonah. It's come out from Reuters news agency, quoting the Vatican, saying that Pope Francis' body is going to be taken to St. Peter's Basilica on Wednesday morning at 09 a.m. local time. That's 7 GMT. Jonah, thank you very much indeed. Jonah Hull there in Vatican City.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.